Good evening, everyone. I will call to order our regular meeting of the Board of Directors on this March 10th, 2026. On behalf of the board, welcome and thank you to those attending our meeting in person, joining us by Zoom, and those staying informed by watching our recording at a later time. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak during community comment, they will need to fill out a speaker form located in the back of the room on the table to my left and turn it in to our board secretary seated at the end of our table, also on my left. Comments will take place during the designated community comment portion of our agenda. And before we get into tonight's agenda, I want to take a moment to introduce those seated at the table with me. To my right, we have Superintendent Degner, Directors Horn Frazier, Eastham, Williams. To my left, we have Directors Finch, Lingo. Vice President Abraham is joining us via phone, and Board Secretary Coven. And our first action for tonight is approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the agenda for tonight.
Second.
Thank you. Board Secretary, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. That takes us to our student representative updates. First up, we will have Tate's video update.
Sanaya,
Jenna,
and Jade from Tate's Media Productions team. We were so glad to wrap up the second trimester and begin the last 12 weeks of the school year.
our Tate boys basketball team had a basketball scrimmage. Trimester 2 has come to the end. Many students had received a couple awards during the award ceremony.
We welcomed about 20 new transfer students for the third trimester.
Spring break is soon to arrive. We are excited for a break.
A large group of students had put in a hand to volunteer at various places, like the Shelter House book sale, Houses in Homes, Skate City, and the free lunch program.
We are hoping the rest of the school year goes quickly.
Toodles!
All right. Next up, we will have Liberty High. John, I understand Mia's unable to join us tonight.
Yep, it's too bad. Lots of stuff is going on in the past week. We've had our finals, and those are finally over, so we're into the final trimester 3. We hopefully don't have too much more work. I mean, we have lots of exams, but they will go fast. The next thing is athletics. We had boys wrestling go to state. Additionally, Natalie Ramsey, one of our Liberty seniors, was named the Mississippi Valley Conference Athlete of the Year, which we're very proud of. Liberty's football coach was recognized as the Coach of the Year for the 5A high school football teams. And then, inspired by Waleed and Eddie, who are sadly not here right now, we have a little outreach section. So Ms. McGrain, an awesome science teacher at Liberty, took her engineering and design class to the community for inspiration for toy design. So these engineering students will look at toys, see how they can improve them or make them better, and then give those back to children in the community. Extracurriculars have been very busy. The Science Bowl team, including myself, got to go to the state competition. That was incredibly fun. Liberty's Math Club is preparing for the state competition in Ames soon. Science Olympiad also went to the state competition, taking home 4 medals and going to the state competition as well. Performing arts, jazz band is tonight. You guys should all definitely come to our jazz concert, showing off all of Liberty's jazz bands. And then Liberty Show Choir hosted events with lots of other schools coming. I'm not entirely aware of what they did, but it was very cool. And then finally, Cheerleading and Color Guard are hosting tryouts and clinics for joining Color Guard next year. That's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next up, we will have City High Tobiah. I don't see Alma, so welcome.
Yeah, a lot of solo representation today. As you can see, I brought two gentlemen with me. I'll introduce them in a moment, but I'm going to keep the recap a little bit more brief. So, City High's Jazz Ensemble won the Liberty Jazz Competition. And our show choir team, Fourth Ave, won their third grand championship this year, being the second high school in Iowa, in the history of Iowa, to have done so. City High's art program had our art show recently. All of our very talented artists got to show off what they made. My friend made a lamp. It was really heavy. I had to help her carry it to her from her car, so pity me. Our mock trial team hosted a scrimmage. Student Senate hosted our winter carnival, which we've put on for the past 4 years. It was a lot of fun. Our quiz bowl team won a competition, defended their title as state champions. City High, another thing we hosted was our math competition. We qualified a few mathletes to state. And finally, I have these gentlemen. Now, if you all remember last week, Alma and I brought along a representative from our show choir team to tell you a little bit more about what they do. These two are representatives of our Business Professionals of America Club, so they're going to describe what they do, and then I'll finish up. Get up here, guys.
All right, how are you guys doing? I'm doing great. My name is Rami McCowie. I'm the acting president of our Business Professionals of America. I'm not here with my vice president, Rito Perez. He couldn't be with us today, but I'm with Joseph Hayek, who will be joining us. And I just want to talk a little bit about our club. So pretty much, it was just me and Rito left after last year, along with a few sophomores and juniors, and we wanted to kind of bring the club back. We haven't done a lot with our club in quite some time, so I thought it was the year to do that. So we recruited over 20 members and sort of just got the ground running, and we wanted to make a trip to state and kind of make an impact there. I'll have Joseph talk about a little bit more about what we did there.
Yeah, so at state, we had 2 national qualifiers, and we ended up having 1 state champion, which hadn't been done at City High in 13 years. So that was pretty incredible. And then I think the main thing I wanted to talk about up here was how the reason that the City High BPA is so important to City High. And we think it's important to City High as it offers an experience to such a wide variety of different students, because unlike other clubs, it offers 50 plus different events in the sort of BPA world. So we think it can cater to lots of students' interests, and we think it's very important to our school.
Yeah, our whole goal is just to bring the club back. It was great to have make a trip to state the first time in 3 years, and having that qualifier the first time in 12 years in BPA's City High history. So we're really glad and we're really proud, and we're excited to see what happens next. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to talk about is unfortunately a little bit less light. I'm sure you can all guess, but I do want to address briefly the elephant in the room, which is obviously the budget, which I know is going to be discussed probably at length in this meeting. Now, obviously, bear in mind, I'm much less well-informed on this than any of you are, so if I say something stupid, forgive me. But there are going to need to be cuts, I know that. And what I am aware of is that right now the district's policy is to provide Chromebooks to every elementary schooler. I don't know how much Chromebooks cost or how much of a problem in terms of the budget that really is, but they are computers. I would assume they're somewhat expensive. And with the rise of AI and more reports coming out about the harm that technology can play in the classroom, I would, I suppose, encourage the board to think about the role that technology plays in classrooms with younger kids. I do think supporting or providing a Chromebook, a free computer to high school students is a very amazing thing that we do in terms of equity and accessibility, and I would certainly encourage that to be continued. But in the elementary school, like in the, I suppose, the years where these kids are learning what education is and how to be educated, the idea that AI or education could be doing it for them, or they could be trying to get it to do it for them, is of concern to me, and I think may be an area where the district is able to save some money. I could be completely wrong, but I hope that whatever decision is made will be able to minimally affect students and teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will have West High, Waleed and Eddie.
What's up, guys? I just want to start it off with the obvious fact that these last few meetings, me and Eddie have been walking in a little late. We wanted to just let it be known that we have track and debate every Tuesday, and we do have reasons to why. So, Eddie, you can start it off.
With that, we're very happy we were third today. Hopefully we weren't pushed back because we've got a bit of an update. First, we wanted to shout out Red Cross Club for collaborating with Canes in Coralville in order to fundraise for blood donations and other things of the sort. We think it's very notable, and I'm sure they raised a lot of money. I didn't get an exact dollar amount, but I definitely think it's worth accounting for here. Additionally, we know about the prom rerun. I'm sure you guys do too. It's district-wide, and it allows people to get prom apparel. Both donations and recipients are able, recipiations, I guess, are able to happen through prom rerun, and Iowa City West is participating in that as well. So that's definitely pretty cool. Moreover, just for some club things, the Muslim Student Association, or MSA, hosted an iftar dinner. I saw some familiar faces there, and we hope you guys enjoyed that as well. And they are planning to kind of do a rerun of Epcot night called Passport to Flavors, which includes a ton of cultural clubs like MSA, SSO, BSU, and etc. to again bring some cultural flavors to the community and kind of help people bond over that. Moreover, student government, which included me and Waleed, obviously, had a study session for the end of trimester 2 in order to help everybody study for finals, and it had a big turnout as well as tutors as well to help people who were struggling with their classes or were worried about their finals. As for competition clubs, first, starting off with HOSA, this weekend they had FLC. I don't know exactly what that stands for, but it's pretty cool, and we got a lot of good placements. Moreover, just like building off of BPA, what these young men had to say, we are very proud to announce that Aiden Thomas is the statewide president of BPA, as well as Aaron King is the vice president of statewide BPA. So definitely a lot of notable accomplishments there. And moreover, West High did participate in City High's math bowl as well, or math competition as well.
I want it to be known that my note card is a Trident cap. I was writing this in the car. I did tell you guys last month that I would try and bring something that's different to how it would normally go at a board of directors meeting. And I think that this year our senior class especially is doing something that's very different. Winston Fan is our president of our senior class, and I am the vice president. And we have made a cabinet for our class to represent after having people vote. And we are hosting events for the senior class. Obviously, there's Senior Assassin, which is heavily mandated, Mr. Gross, and will be safe for school regarding the AP test as well. But we're also hosting Senior Field Day on our field later in May, just to have a fun time. We've raised upwards of $700 in 3 days to be able to fund this, because we have movie night. We have a movie night that's going to be at the track as well, where we're going to get it's essentially a really big trailer night where we'll have a movie that the senior class will vote for to watch, just to bring the community together and have people just be able to have a good time. We also have SELA Biliteracy going on around the district, and I personally had like a specific liking to this because I'm doing the one in French and Spanish, but just being in the room, taking it this Monday, had me realize how different people really were. I didn't know that until the Center of Innovation that we taught, that we had an ability for testing in French, Chinese, or Russian and Chinese, and just so many other languages that were available to other people. And it made me not really, I wouldn't say envious, but it made me realize just how awesome people are. It's a really fun thing to see, especially being in like so many extracurriculars, and just coming here, hearing about the other schools. I think that it's something that I want it to be known that there are more things going on in the district than people really realize, especially with BPA at City or people talking about the budget. Just people talk, and from what I know, that there's a lot of good things happening here.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Have a good night. Next up is community comment. Thank you for your interest in the Iowa City Community School District and for your willingness to share your comments. You are reminded to give your name, address, and topic on which you plan to speak about. During community comment, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. Speakers who make comments are reminded they are responsible for their own statements and may be subject to legal action for those which include hate speech and that are threatening, harassing, or defamatory in nature. It is expected that speakers will address the board and each other with civility and abide by the stated time limits. All community comment directed at non-agenda items and agenda items will take place at the beginning of the meeting and will be limited to 4 minutes per speaker and 5 minutes for speakers who has the assistance of an interpreter. Speaker's time limit will be displayed on the iPad on the ledge in front of Board Secretary Ms. Colvin. An alarm will sound once the speaker's time has expired. The initial community comment period will be limited to an hour. Remaining community comment, to the extent necessary, will take place at the end of the meeting. The board will not engage in any discussion during public comment. The role of the board during this time is to listen. Any individual who does not abide by these stated rules or otherwise disrupts the meeting may be asked to leave and or referred to law enforcement. And our first speaker for tonight will be Angie Rogers.
Good evening. My name is Angie Rogers and I live in Coralville. I'm here tonight as a community stakeholder regarding the financial crisis facing our district. I want to remind the board of something fundamental. You are not a rubber stamp for district administration. You are an elected governing body and your job is oversight. By law and public trust, you are responsible for overseeing the superintendent and safeguarding district finances on behalf of students, staff, taxpayers, and community. Director Williams and Malone were recently quoted in the Gazette saying, quote, "The board bears this responsibility. We are fiduciaries of the district and we have to do a better job," end of quote. And that quote, in hindsight, end of quote, the board could have asked more questions. Acknowledging mistakes after the fact is not sufficient. This board must exercise rigorous oversight in real time. The core fiduciary duties of a board member are duty of care, meaning be diligent and informed, duty of loyalty, put the community and district as a whole first, and the duty to follow law and district policy. When the retroactive approval of the $10 million interfund transfer was discussed and voted on, every board member had the duty to probe administration's request. Yet the public watched as only 2 board members asked meaningful questions about how a transfer that size happened without board approval. This is unacceptable governance and oversight. I also want to address accountability and fairness. Board members are elected to represent the community and make hard decisions, even when those decisions are uncomfortable. When there are close relationships to the district, including spouses employed by the district or close ties to senior leadership, the board must take extra care to avoid even the appearance of conflicted oversight. Please ask the basic governance questions family, staff, and taxpayers expect regarding this former CFO and the executive cabinet compensation decisions. How many candidates applied for the open CFO position? If there was more than one, what were their qualifications? Who did the CFO report to? What oversight of this position occurred over the last 3 years? Were there any annual reviews given? That chain of accountability must be examined openly and thoroughly. If you don't know where to start to look at the organizational chart provided by district leadership, which can be found in the March 3rd, 2026 slide deck. In addition, How are compensation decisions made at the executive cabinet level? Specifically, the public deserves clarity on how executive cabinet raises are determined, who approves them, and what controls or oversight exists to ensure those decisions are fair, consistent, and aligned with budget realities. Given that the superintendent is the only employee that reports to the board, I believe that the public deserves transparency on these matters. Finally, I urge you to vote no tonight on reducing classroom staffing. The proposed cuts total $2.2 million. It is unacceptable for district leadership to remain largely insulated from these cuts while also proposing classroom staff reductions. In addition, central administration seems to continue to add to its headcount during this crisis. The board documents for tonight include a recommendation for a salary adjustment for a February 2026 hire of an enrollment and marketing specialist with an annual salary over $53,000 plus benefits. We are in a financial crisis. Why is there not a hiring freeze at central administration? You were elected to lead, not defer. Our community expects diligence, independence, and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Elisa Meeks.
Hello, my name is Elisa Meeks, and I am here to speak to the board tonight about the budget and class sizes. I'm a proud West High graduate who has 3 children who attend Iowa City schools. My own children attended Kirkwood Elementary. This is also my 22nd year as an elementary teacher in the Iowa City Community School District. I love teaching in Iowa City and have had the privilege to teach at Horn, Wickham, Lemmy, Online Program, and now Twain. I was a district mentor during the 2018-2019 school year and traveled to Grant Wood, Hills, Twain, Hoover, and Lucas. As you can see, I have been in many places, seen a lot of classes, and taught everything from kindergarten to 4th grade. Anyone who tells you class size does not matter or have serious impacts on learning has not been in a classroom. It is one of the highest contributing factors to how a student's school year is going to go. A teaching colleague of mine who has 33 students this year sums up these challenges perfectly. Less individualized instruction. It's more difficult to narrow down skill gaps. Struggling students get less intervention or intense intervention due to large groups. Advanced students get lost in the mix, and small reading and math groups are shorted. The logistical challenges of trying to meet with 30+ readers in small groups daily is nearly impossible to tackle. Reduced quality and speed of feedback. Quality feedback is one of the most research-supported teaching moves, yet it suffers greatly with large class sizes. It takes longer to give written feedback to each child and to grade assignments, lengthening the window between what they hear and when they did their work. This makes the feedback less effective. Teacher workload. Large classes drastically increase teacher workload. For example, it took hours outside of contract time to fully prepare for parent-teacher conferences. We don't have enough prep time to do the work the job requires us to do. Oftentimes, there are not even 30+ conference slots available. Additionally, behind-the-scenes paperwork, grading, and responding to emails increases with more students. Last year, I was a single section of 4th grade at Twain. I started the year with 29 students and quickly went to 32. I even had 33 students in my room at one point. My classroom is not big enough to hold 33 students comfortably. There is no carpet space and barely enough room for 33 desks. The environment was frequently overstimulating to both students and adults because of the sheer number of bodies in such a small space. This year I have 28, and even that is still a lot of students for the size of the room. We all hate the thought of students sitting in their desks all day, yet we have no space to move around for brain breaks or transition from a circle or carpet area to desks for movement transitions. Now, you are probably thinking, Elisa, we already support keeping class size low. That's why we have RAM allocations. Yes, and yet 32 students in a classroom is still too high. The elementary teaching load demand has never been higher. Still, this school year, a 4th grade classroom has 33 students from day 1 and never got a second section. This is a problem. I would argue that RAM 3 should not exist. It doesn't matter what building you teach in, 30 students or to be clear, way less in a classroom should be the aspiration. Please know that elementary teachers in Iowa City have been asked to do more and more each and every year. We cover for each other, we miss our lunches, often have no one in the building for behavior support, miss preps for meetings every single week, and still we show up with so much heart to try to make things awesome for our kids. Budget cuts clearly have to happen. However, I strongly encourage you to keep the money to do so closest to the kids.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Maka Pilcher Hyatt.
Hello, my name's Maka Pilcher Hayek. I live in Iowa City. I was looking forward to not speaking tonight, and then I became aware of an email that a director in central administration sent to all building administrators in elementary and secondary. The email read in part, "As you know, the district is navigating a challenging financial landscape and is experiencing heightened public scrutiny. A small group of colleagues has drafted a letter of support for Superintendent Matt Degner, Deputy Superintendent Chase Ramey, and the Executive Cabinet." Let's see. It calls on us as leaders to approach this moment with unity and focus rather than turning inward and assigning blame. We are inviting ICCSD administrators to add their names in support of this letter. And then a letter was attached for the recipients to add their names to. I can think of 0 scenarios where an employee would feel comfortable saying no to this email. In fact, I'm sure I'm not the only one who heard from building administrators that felt intimidated and coerced to sign it. The statement also contained several false statements and reiterated that turning inward and assigning blame is somehow contrary to the district's interests. We, of course, know that is not true, and that in fact, we cannot move forward until we find out how we ended up in the situation we are in. In the end, the letter just strikes me as highly inappropriate, and I encourage the board to examine whether it was legal to send. Our building administrators deserve respect, way more respect than this letter gave them. They, like our teachers and our staff and our families, are following the facts. A lot of this information is available to the public, and we're reading it. Therefore, they, of course, share our concern and our frustration with the central administration's financial mismanagement. It is affecting all of us already at a building level. I think one of the main messages I hope the board gives to its buildings, to its administrators, its teachers and staff, is that we understand that they can love this district and that they serve our students, and they can at the same time criticize the central administration. Right now, if they didn't, it would seem strange. So I just want to thank our building administrators for having to deal with the situation that this admin team is putting them in, and apologize and let them know that the community does see them and thinks that this was a huge overstep on the administration's part. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Laura Westermeyer.
Hi, good evening. My name is Laura Westmeyer. I live in Iowa City. Our community is questioning if this board understands its role of oversight. Because of your failure, students are paying the price and the public trust has been lost. I'll begin with recent comments made by former board member Director Eyestone. He said board members should remember there are going to be loud, pervasive people in the community, and that you are doing a good job regardless of what those loud, pervasive people say. But I want you to imagine being one of those voices. Imagine being Mary, who is an incredible mother, volunteer, and community member, plus teaches accounting ethics at the Tippie College of Business. Mary has predicted nearly every crisis this district has faced, not because she has a telepathic mind, but because she has a brilliant one and uses it. Mary has written you emails, many of them, and has spoken here numerous times. She has, over and over again, warned us of the next developing crisis. Before the bond, she urged the district to move the 6th grade from elementary to the middle school. She predicted that we would overbuild elementary seats and it would create financial hardship on our district. The idea was ignored and scoffed at. Instead, we added greatly to our elementary classroom, and then, after all the new space was built, the district moved 6th grade to middle school anyway, and then demolished an elementary school. Mary warned strongly that the enrollment projections used during the bond campaign were inflated. Mary's projected numbers are so much closer to our current student population. She expressed great concerns about hiring an unqualified CFO. She warned that the 2023 audit was late. Yet, people like Mary are dismissed as loud, pervasive voices. And it was just several years ago when the Iowa Department of Education investigated our district and reported a retaliatory culture by the administration toward the people who speak out. So, with the reported retaliatory culture, a board member sitting right there 3 months ago called engaged citizens loud, pervasive voices. That should give us all reason to pause and question whether this leadership has ever learned from its past. Director Eyestone also said, when addressing the board's role regarding the administration, "You're not the most important people here. Your job is to make their jobs easier." Respectfully, that is not your role. Your job is to question the superintendent, not to make his job easier. When a board begins to believe its role is simply to support administration, something dangerous happens. Problems grow quietly in the background, and eventually those problems become crises. And that is exactly where we are again today. This crisis did not originate in the classroom. It happened because of incompetent, dishonest, and excuse-ridden staff. Our public is tired of talking about closing schools and cutting teachers, tired of paying interest and penalties instead of investing that money in students and teachers. We do not expect perfection from our leaders, but we do expect vigilance and competence. Strong oversight is not negativity, and it should never be dismissed as a loud, pervasive voice. Our community is watching to see who is willing to speak up and ensure this leadership does not continue with incompetent, dishonest, and excuse-ridden staff. Anyone in a leadership role of this magnitude who uses the excuse they didn't know they should let their boss know about $10 million is lying or incompetent or both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we will have Joe Westermeyer.
Good evening. My name is Joe Westermeyer. I'm a resident of Iowa City. I'm also a product of the Iowa City Community School District. Throughout my years as a student in the district, I was always amazed at my teachers who had the gift. Teachers who could excite a child's interest in the world. Teachers who reinforced the difference between right and wrong. I was taught the value of knowledge and wisdom, and I developed a strong respect for those teachers and the lessons they taught me. Fast forward several years, and I watched my mother run for school board. My mom is an amazing person. She's a highly successful business owner whose business was built on providing services to children in need. To this day, she spends her time and resources helping others. I spent years after school watching her in her business, and I've never met anyone who cared so much about assisting those in need and doing what is right. A simple concept, doing what is right. You just need to tell the truth. Make sure your words and actions align, work hard, and be kind. That is exactly what my best teachers taught me at school. That is what my mom and dad modeled for me every day. When she ran for school board, I saw her and her friends do what was right. They embraced fiscal responsibility. They wanted to make sure the schools were financially strong so that students would feel secure. She ran against others who were supported by big business, who just wanted to see unfettered spending, Their words did not align with their actions. They spoke of educating children while focusing on spending money. Look where we are today. During that election, I learned that what I was taught in my classrooms was not widely embraced by our administration. I watched highly intelligent and successful professionals attempt to share knowledge and wisdom with our administration, and I watched them get rebuffed. While I was taught in the classroom about the importance of seeking knowledge and wisdom, I learned that knowledge and wisdom can get in the way when spending money is the priority. We need change in our leadership. We need all in for all students to mean something real. We need knowledge and wisdom to be sought from our community members and not deflected. We need change. I would like to ask the board to do what you know is right. Send a message to our community that our students come first. Choose a new leader who, with the support of our amazing teachers, can work with our highly educated and experienced community members to rebuild our district into something better. A secure place built on fiscal responsibility where all in for all students actually means something. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will have David Norpier.
Good evening. I'm David Nerper. I live in Iowa City. I want to thank everyone who came. We have some really amazing community members who care a lot. Thank you. Good evening. Time's passing. We're learning more. This mess gets worse and worse. I've been talking with lots of parents and teachers. I've told you guys my opinion over the past 2 meetings. I'd like to share with you some questions that have been asked of me that I think are really good. I know that you guys can't answer them, but I think they should be part of the conversation. First, trust. All that money that we've spent on PR, trying to get people excited about our district, bam, it's in the hole. People are losing trust. First of all, they know they're not hearing the whole truth. We keep getting these emails from Superintendent Degner that tell us, oh, 61 kids didn't enroll. Oh, we ended up having to pay more money for labor than we thought. He doesn't say anything about his CFO. He doesn't say anything about the state of our financial records. Let's tell the truth. Let people know. Big issues. Misuse of funds. People want to know what happened. Why do administrators get big raises when last year half of our schools tested lower than they did the year before? That's a failure. And we're giving people raises. They want to know why, when we asked the administrators, why did scores fall, they said, we don't know. It keeps us up at night. Well, I think they just told you they need to be replaced with people who do know, who can get those scores up. Our priority should be ensuring that students are educated. We should not be wasting so much time picking carpet colors and furniture. Crimes. People want to know, was there a crime? Was this just a mistake? Did we just happen to hire a guy who didn't have the correct credentials? I know that Mary warned you guys. Or was he chosen to cover up fiscal malfeasance? It's a question worth answering. Have you guys reached out to Mr. Sands? Have you asked him to perform a real audit? Maybe it's a good idea. We have a lot of Republicans watching this district. Do you think that they're not seeing what's going on? Should you guys call the FBI before they show up? I thought that was a really good question. Which one of you guys is going to be on the nightly news? How can a superintendent for over 2 years not know what was going on? That's amazing. I had a father who said to me, you know what? If I punch in late 3 times in a month, I lose my job. How does this guy keep his? Really good question. Conflict of interest. We've got 2 directors with husbands who are teachers. We're talking about issues that affect human relations. Should you guys recuse yourselves? I know that one of you is friends with the deputy superintendent. His job's got to be in question. Should you recuse yourself? Director Eastman, we've recently learned you were treasurer of an association that had big issues with financial records. Should you recuse yourself? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Kathy Gonzalez.
Hi, I'm Kathy, Kathy Gonzalez. I live on the east side of Iowa City. And I want to talk to you about the RAM model. I want to encourage you to not approve the current model. I have 2 students that have both gone to Lucas Elementary. One is still there. And we were and have been victims of the last reduction of the revised RAM model. And I will just tell you how detrimental it's been to our community. And what I want to say is that the RAM model cannot be approved without it being weighted to include students in that classroom that might have IEPs, 504s, and ELLs. Because a teacher teaching 30 kids that have IEPs and 504s and ELLs is not the same on paper as 30 students that don't have any of those factors. And I will tell you that from personal experience. Our PTO, our classes, we fought and we contacted the district for the last 2 years, since 2023. I can't tell you how many times. We went through how many people in the district. We went through so many different instructional design coaches and behavioral design, strategists came to our school to help us because for the RAM, they decided to merge 2 classrooms that had never been merged before, and it was a nightmare. It was horrible. They could not manage that many kids in one room because there were so many IEPs that had so many additional paras in that room. You cannot imagine how many kids and people were in that one room. They had to take every single thing out of that classroom in order to fit all of those people. So anything that was engaging that the teacher normally would have in that room was gone. So think of it as a bare, blank, white room. That's what it was. And the whole year, there was an empty room next door. We were told repeatedly that we could not afford another teacher to help. Those children, the ones that didn't have the IEPs, the 504s, suffered trauma, that had to go into therapy to deal with all the behavior issues. We had people come because there was so much violence in this room. I'm just telling you, this is not okay. This is how you lose children in our district. This is how you lose good teachers. This is not, you do not want to accept this RAM model. I'm just telling you, you can talk to anybody in our community. We reached out to you. We reached out to you numerous times. We reached out to the district. We reached out to secondary, the elementary head. We reached out to all of you. You never came to a PTO meeting. You never came to talk to our parents. And I just want to say that it's a warning because this will happen to other schools, and it was horrible. It was detrimental. And to those kids, and we really felt that we were just being pushed and pushed until they got to middle school. And I just really urge that you do not do this because it will be detrimental, and to focus your cuts on other things. And don't do this to justify cutting teachers, because small class sizes are only beneficial for all students. And I just cannot endorse that you would support this without having any kind of weighted model, because it just does not take into effect all the extra work that those teachers have to deal with, especially with dealing with any kids that have also those extra supports that they need, because that is so much extra stress on them. And you are just gonna burn them out, and especially any new teachers. They're not gonna stay in the profession, and you're really gonna lose out on some really good people. And, we really love our teachers. And my kids have all loved their teachers there, and I just don't want to see that happen to them. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Katie Linder.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Katie Linder. I live in Iowa City, and I have a third grade student and a pre-K student who are both part of the Iowa City Community School District. And really, I'm here tonight because I'm thinking about them. I've been following along on the recent saga of our district's financial crisis, and I want to start by thanking our board members for their service. This is often a thankless, difficult job that requires a lot of hours and a lot of learning, and that does not go unnoticed as we have these really difficult discussions. I think it's clear that we're just now starting to get a better picture of how poor our financial situation is and how irresponsibly our administration has managed our finances, and the failure of this and previous board members to carry out its fiduciary oversight and responsibility. At this point, what I'm most perplexed about, as board members have been quoted in local media talking about how terrible they feel about this situation, taking some responsibility, is how this body hasn't publicly demanded responsibility from the administrators who put us in this situation. Your role as a watchdog over finances is basically impossible to execute without correct numbers and transparent reporting. The gross mismanagement by our generously compensated administration team is completely inexcusable. As a community, this mismanagement will have very real consequences, as we've learned and heard tonight, for our educators, our support staff, and on the quality of education for our kids and their outcomes going forward. Like so many in this community, I have been vocal about the value and importance of public education, how this school district is the right and the best choice always. Game on, we've seen it on all the marketing videos. Discussing with friends and neighbors about how bad the state voucher program is for so many kids, especially our most vulnerable children and families. And what have we done as the state's premier award-winning school district? At a crucial time, when the state is questioning our competency and our value more than ever, we've completely failed on the very basic level of accounting and bookkeeping, balancing a checkbook, spending more money than we have. What do we say now to those families who take the vouchers? As we look at the students facing cuts today, we've heard about huge classroom sizes and the problems that come with that, the impacts on our teachers, the support staff. My daughter's looking at a classroom of 30 next year for her 4th grade. Trust this district? Trust these leaders? No, that is not likely at this point. We have fed right into the state narrative that our public schools cannot be trusted and should not be valued. And we will all experience the compounding consequences from this administrative-made disaster, and quite frankly, what feels like a cavalier attitude in how we've addressed it so far. The consequences will be more families opting out, tighter budgets, and deeper cuts. We need to correct this now, and we need to do it with new leadership. We need people who understand the correct skill sets that we need to hire for. We need people who are experts in finance and budgeting. We need people who basically understand how to do operations and run a business. We need new leaders, especially those at the top who are tasked with this responsibility and compensated generously for it. This board must demand about accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our community comment portion of the agenda. Before we move to consent agenda approval, were there questions from directors regarding the bills that were reviewed this cycle that directors wanted to share? Hearing none, are there items from the consent agenda that directors would like to pull? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval of tonight's consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Board Secretary Covum, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. Director Eastham, did you vote?
I tried to, so I vote yes.
Thank you. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Next up, we will go to policy review, and it's the 600 policies again on our agenda. Director Lingo, since you chair that committee.
Okay, policy review, policy and governance notes, and if I miss anything, Deputy Ramey, please let me know. And Chief Human Resource Officer Proud, I'd like you to explain what is going on with the RAM model and the weighting and all that. if that's all right, since we've had some questions tonight. I'm sorry to call you out like that last minute. So the bills passed in last session are a large part of what went on. Curriculum evaluation term change because the word equity wasn't our choice. Corrections to the grade levels to reflect the way our buildings, like our middle schools and elementary schools, are staffed, are in there. There's education changes that I can honestly believe that I can speak for the board, that we would not have brought voluntarily, but were added to the state per state law. Some things on internet appropriate use there, and changes for clarity and redundancy does not change the approach or expectations to appropriate use of the internet. 605.6 R1 removal because it is going to be added into our 700 series with some changes. So 700 series would be later this month. There are some changes around AI language and personally identifiable information. And the RAM changes to reduce it to only 3 levels of RAM. Splits in these RAM changes do reflect the current status of RAM that we've had this past year. One of the things about the policies is that they go on a rotating basis, so some get hit at the right time and the wrong time, or not the wrong time, but get hit in consecutive manner. So this is when the 600s came up to reflect those changes. So, Mr. Proud, if you could talk a little bit about the RAM model.
Absolutely. Director Lingo, you kind of hit it there at the end, exactly how it is. It's just a reflection of what we reported the last 2 years in the enrollment report and how what we've had in place since the end of the 23-24 school year. So that's just bringing policy up to date with our current practices related to the 3 RAM levels that we've been able to operate with over the last 2 years. So that's the primary change. There's no change to the policy necessarily. It's just updating the
On
file.
the weights and the weighting and how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So the weighting looks at in a variety of ways. Each kind of shared this during the enrollment report, is that each student kind of begins with a certain, every student's counted as one, and then we look at various factors like special education, ELL, McKinney-Vento status, homelessness, various other factors to determine the needs in each one of our classrooms, and then the needs across the building, which then creates our 3 different levels.
If anybody has any questions or comments.
Sure, I have some questions. I guess we're not voting on this yet. It will be later this evening, but I am just going to say right now that I am going to vote no on the 600 series in support of the teachers. We've received many emails this past week concerned about our students and their learning and their achievement, and concerned about our teachers and their workload and their morale. And I just feel the need to signal an intention that we are going to work on this. I know that my vote's not going to change what those RAM numbers are, and that we can't fix this problem with a vote, but I do think that it is very important to signal that there is an intention to work on this, because this really is unsustainable. I was looking at the estimations for the classrooms for next year, and by my count, I had 12 elementary classrooms that were greater than or equal to 30, and 4 kindergarten classrooms that were greater than or equal to 24, and 1 was estimated to be 27, kindergarten. I just want to acknowledge that this is problematic. We want to do better with our class sizes, and we think about promoting our district in this era of school choice. And when we think about our district as a business, and how businesses maintain and grow their business is by focusing on the product. And in a public school district, we should be focusing on the classroom. And if we have a good product, which is our classroom, our product will sell itself. So my intention is to continue to work with district administration. I know that the solutions to this are not easy, but I feel the need to kind of draw a line in the sand and say, I'm not okay with this, and I'm going to vote no on these RAM levels. I know it's what we had this year, but at some point, we have to take a stand.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, thank you. Next up, we will move to our discussion items, and the first item is the Interim Chief Financial Officer report from Kim Michael Lee, who is joining us via phone. Kim?
Hi, this is Kim. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, buddy. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but hopefully we'll do it this time. So, in your packet, you received an updated report progress as of last Friday. The chart that I've enclosed here indicates the progress that we've made for fiscal year 24, 25, and 26. The fiscal year cleanup and the audit preparation. For 23 and 24, the bank statements have been completed. For fiscal year 25, the general fund has been reconciled through September of 2024, and the insurance fund has been completed for the entire fiscal year 25. The remaining funds still are pending, and they'll begin after we finish the general, as we feel that some of the stuff will probably fall out by doing the general fund, which is the largest. And 2026 has not begun yet. For fiscal year 2024, the cash accounts have been reconciled, and the liabilities that were incorrect have been corrected, and the field works testing for fiscal year 2024 has begun. The auditors have been out at the offices pulling backup and testing this week, and they were here last week as well, too. Part of the cleanup I listed in the report includes still some remaining items for fiscal year 24 to be closed for the audit in itself. The first one I mentioned here, to correct the interfunds, this portion has been completed. The rest of the items are still pending and still need to be completed. Moving along to the bottom part of my memo, the efficiencies and the internal control items for the week ending March 6th. Our monthly close schedule that I talked about last week, the development has taken place. All staff has been signed to their particular items on the balance sheet and the closeouts for the month. I wanted to clarify from last week, as I feel that there might have been a miscommunication. The clarification on the monthly close schedule that we have implemented is similar to what had been used, not in its entirety, but in the concept going back into fiscal year 23 close, but has nothing like this or what had similarly been done has been completed since July of 2023. Until the cash accounts get caught up, the items on the close schedule for those particular items won't take place. We also are undergoing our accounts payable research for ACH payments instead of mailing checks. The ability to be able to provide ACH payments to vendors will help reduce check stock, postage, and staff preparing for the mailings. And this is the common practice out there for ACH payments. So we're looking into that and still doing some research, and we'll come back to you when we have more information. That's all I have in my report tonight. If anybody has any questions.
Feel free, directors, if you have questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Michael Lee. I appreciate, again, your work that you're doing for us.
I can't hear.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Now I can, yes.
Okay, very good. I've got several questions for you. So thanks for being patient for me in advance. Is that better? Can you hear me still?
No, not really.
Oh. Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, much better, thank you.
Okay, that's great, okay, all right. This is a question that came from the community. How familiar are you with Iowa school finance laws? I know it's a complicated landscape. I'm sure you're familiarizing yourself in the last 2 weeks. But I was wondering if you could comment on how familiar you are with Iowa school finance law.
I'm not familiar with Iowa school laws prior to coming out. I'm getting an education on it. A lot of states have different laws. I'm from Illinois. I've worked a lot with Illinois and Texas as well too. So I'm sure Iowa has its nuances as well, and we'll manage those as we need to.
Okay. In your summary of progress, you said the liabilities that were incorrect have been corrected. Can you share with us what the magnitude of those liabilities were?
What it was there were some items that were booked straight to equity accounts that should not have been. They should have been booked to a different entry. I don't have the dollar amounts that were impacted right now in front of me. I can get back with you if you would like that information.
Okay, yeah, you can just send it by email. That would be fine to the board. And then in your summary status chart, there were several comments about the interfund balance. Interfund is out of balance, imbalance interfund transactions, many through the 2024 certified annual report process. The interfund balance at fiscal year end appeared to have been forced to balance through an additional entry to validate the certified annual report. So I was wondering if you could clarify what that means, and then also comment on whether or not you anticipate there might be some inaccuracies in our certified annual reports.
Sure. What you're getting at for the interfunds is similar to what I just said. Is there were some transactions that were booked straight to fund equity, which you do not do. So they were forced entry to balance the books, and those did impact the financial statements and the CAR as well. So going forward, for fiscal year 25, since we haven't fully reconciled those bank accounts, I don't really want to comment that there is or is not a mistake, because I don't know until that's further researched. As we get through the 25 reconciliations and investment accounts, we'll be able to tell what was and wasn't forced in that as well.
Okay, and thank you. And then you've also indicated that fiscal year 2023 is now complete, and so now having that complete, I'm wondering what your opinion is on our FY23 audit, and whether the reasonable assurance the auditors have provided us in the 2023 audit is valid. Do you see any reason to involve the state auditor in our fiscal year 23 audit?
Not at this time, I don't. I kind of want to wait to see what the auditors find in 24. As we're going through it and as they're going through it, I want to make sure that we're looking at the items. There were things in 2023 that were deficiencies that were written up. So I want to be able to talk to the auditors, and I haven't had a chance to talk to the partner yet, as they haven't been in the office, for what they see in 23. Was anything corrected? And if so, what was corrected from the deficiencies in 23? So I want to wait and talk to the auditors first about that.
Okay, thank you. We've had several community members bring up the idea of bringing in a forensic accountant. Would you be able to comment on whether or not you feel that is needed, or if that's something that we could afford as a district?
At this time, I wouldn't recommend bringing in a forensic audit. As I'm working through and the auditors are working through, going through all these items, I think at this time it wouldn't be advantageous to the district, nor do I think you can afford it at this time, but that's beside the point. If one is necessary, as we're going through the items, I would let the board know that I had a concern, but at this moment, I don't have that concern. So as we continue to work through that, I will let you know if that opinion changes.
Okay, great, so you'll let us know. And then my
Correct.
last question, at the last meeting, I asked for a report of written deficiencies and corrective actions. I'm wondering if you can get that to us by the middle of April.
For what year are you looking for?
Just any of the work that you've been doing for the district, if you would be able to give us a written report of the deficiencies that you've encountered up to that point, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of trying to do as, each week as I put up the weekly report to give you some of the highlights for the week as we're working through some of these items. It will probably be a little bit more detailed after we get everything completed. But the weekly reports are intended to do that for you.
Okay, I think we're I was looking more for like a consolidated report, but thank you.
Yeah, that'll probably come later. Right now, I'm trying to keep you up to date every week, what's going on, so.
Yeah, I know, you're doing a lot of work, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Ms. Michael Lee, I know that we have previously talked about the need for a forensic auditor, but can you also share what your background is in forensic auditing?
Sure, thank you. For the forensic, the reason why I said that right now the forensic audit probably isn't needed is I do have a forensic certification in my background, so I'm kind of taking upon this. I'm not, doing a forensic audit to be to clarify for that. However, I am looking at it in that same, eye fashion while we're going through these items and questioning a lot of things, because I want to make sure I have answers, so you have answers, and anything that I see we can correct immediately, we're doing thus forth.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions from board members?
Yeah, I have some. First, this is Director Lingo. I want to let you know I'm appreciative of your work for the community and for the school board. The first question, you said something about the close process. Did you say that it was going on before July 2023, or that's just how far back you've gone?
I have found a close schedule. It's not exactly like I have developed, but they had some type of close schedule that they were utilizing before July of 23. It appears that the last time it was used was at the end of June of 23, and nothing has been used or can be documented since July of 23, July 1st of 23.
Okay, that's different than what we were told at the legislative meeting last Friday. So we want to tell the legislators that there was some sort of closed statements developed that was being used according to what I've just heard. Now, on the closed process, could you just, because I've had a few people ask me in the public what exactly it is, and I can't answer them. What exactly is the closed process?
The closed process for not only a school district, but for any type of company, you usually put together a closed schedule saying, okay, these are the items that have to be reconciled, completed, signed off on. So, for example, like your accounts payable on your balance sheet should be reconciled to make sure everything ticks and ties is similar to your accounts receivables, payroll, all your payroll, that you've paid, all your taxes, remitted and taken out of people's paychecks, all those should be reconciled as well too. Those are just a couple examples for you. If you have any grants, any grants income in, going out all should be reconciled as well too. Those are just a couple examples, including all of your bank reconciliations there as well too, and any month close and journal entries. Those are just a few items that are on the list.
Is the process that you found here consistent with other school districts that you've worked with?
Can you repeat that? You phased out.
The process that you found that when you came here 2 weeks ago, the processes that you found in place, are they consistent with the other school districts that you've worked with?
Some yes and some no.
Okay, that's fair. Now, this is more of a question that some of the people have asked me, is how is your conversation with people on finding past inadequacies and things that went on? How do you do that with people that you are internally working with?
I'm sorry.
Can you give, I've had questions on how does the interim CFO figure out the inadequacies and address them and discuss with current and former employees. Do you discuss with current and former employees, or how does that work?
Well, the current employees that are there, yes. Past CFOs, no. I have not talked to them. As we're going through the reconciliations, I do meet with people, question people, ask questions. Typically, the more you ask questions and the more you dig into something, the more you start finding out, and then doing just some basic research as well, too. Most employees are anxious to learn. We're in the business of education. I feel that the staff needs educating, and we'll continue to do that because the more we can educate them and show them what is proper going forward, then they can correct anything that they have or have not been doing.
Okay. And now that you've had another week, I asked 2 questions for you last week, and I'll ask you again. Do you believe we are in a place to know our financials well enough to discuss contracts with employment groups, or do you feel that we should have more information?
At this point, I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, that's fine. How do you feel about the financial cuts that we're offering tonight? Or do you have the financial information available to understand that yet?
Can you yourself? I'm sorry.
So we're discussing the budgetary cuts tonight, and I'm just trying to get an idea of how you feel about those, given the financial picture that you have so far, or do you believe you don't have enough financial information yet?
Well, we're still looking through to make sure that there are no, discrepancies or stuff like that for 24, 25, and of course 26. But there does appear that that the budget cuts so far that I've seen been made privy to are warranted at this point of time with the financial situation that the district is in.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Anybody?
I'd just like to say that I'm really pleased to see this report tonight, especially to see that the bank reconciliations work for 23 and 24 has been done, I think, as I understand this report, for all accounts. And the 25 reconciliation work on the accounts is in process for the general fund, as well as being completed for the insurance fund. To me, getting the reconciliations in order is a major step forward in terms of my understanding of our financial situation.
Were there any additional comments or questions from directors? Sorry, was that Vice President Abraham?
I don't have anything.
Okay,
No.
all right.
President Malone, before we leave this item, if that's okay.
I'm sorry, what?
I have something before we leave this item, if that's okay.
Okay, go
to
ahead.
Fit in. So, thank you, Kim Michael Lee, for your report. I did want to bring attention to an issue that we've identified here in the last several days. As we've mentioned before, part of our work right now includes an ongoing review and investigation of past practices in the business office. As we've continued our general fund analysis, we've also been investigating our other funds, including our capital accounts. In doing so, we identified that the receipt of our October property tax funds, that the business office did not separate and distribute funds between SAFE, PEPL, and debt service as they should have. Those funds were ultimately expended and committed to projects, but not used on any general fund expenditures. That means our SAVE and debt service balances currently have limited or insufficient resources to meet our upcoming bond obligations on June 1st. The district has to meet those obligations. We're working to identify what corrective actions need to occur for the incorrect separation of funds and how this will impact or influence our upcoming overall borrowing strategy to ensure we meet our bond obligations by June 1. Both of these items will be presented to the board later this month, and we're confident we will have a solution. We also provide a full review of our capital accounts on March 24th, but in the spirit of transparency, we wanted to inform the public of the issue tonight. Again, I want to emphasize that we will continue to review and investigate past practices in the business office and are committed to communicating to you issues as we learn about those. Thank you.
Are there any additional comments or questions? Thank you, CFO Michael Lee. The next discussion item is our board financial update, and that's codifying some of the steps that we have or are in the process of taking. And just want to make sure that everything is there, or if there's questions from directors or comments that directors would like to add to that process that's listed. I had several directors request that we sort of put everything into one format so we can track what we're doing, what we said we would do, and add additional.
Did you want to go first?
Are we able to add or amend this?
Yeah, it's an
Okay.
ongoing document.
We'll get to it next with the audit resolution, but there's some language about the audit in here that I think that we should change to track the language of the audit resolution that we pass later tonight. And that would be the fourth bullet point. I would propose, just for consistency, that we're saying the same thing.
Thank you for putting this together. It's really important that we acknowledge the seriousness of the current situation and do all we can to rebuild trust with transparency. So the one thing that I think would be helpful to add to this would be a timeline. The board learned of the loan on, January 16th. State auditor notified on this date. Board members met with district legal counsel for the first time on March 10th. In the spirit of transparency and rebuilding trust, it's really important for us to be extremely accurate with this information. So some of the things I would probably just maybe tweak some of the language where it says the interim CFO reports to the board. In reality, the interim CFO reports to both the superintendent and the board, and maybe even more accurate would be to say that the CFO works within the district's administrative structure under the superintendent while also providing direct reporting to the board. And I can give you that language later if you'd like to add that. The line of communication is not maybe direct. I'm not sure if that's accurate. It's kind of routed through board leadership. I am wondering if maybe it could be a little bit more direct, and I can discuss that with you. At another time as well. And then I would also like to add that the board has requested, or at least I requested, I guess, personally, not the board, a detailed accounting of all deficiencies and corrective actions taken by our interim CFO.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
thank you. It's a very important document, so I'm very appreciative that you did this and got this started.
One thing that it said with receipts and disbursements and balances, last night I was just thumbing through some of the old board reports, and I know that I've had comments of this before. I would really like to see the credit card statements added back into the receipts that we receive monthly. I don't know why they're there. I don't know why they got taken out. At some point they did, but in 2019, you could see what credit card purchases were done, and you could see the travel and what was going on. So that would be my one thing that I kind of is tangential to this document that I would like to see starting in our agendas.
Great. Any additional comments or questions? All right.
1 second. With Lisa's, or Director Williams, do we want to make an amendment to this document to put that verbiage in now, or wait until after or next time?
We have other updates that we can add.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. That takes us to our audit resolution language brought to us by Director Lingo. And I will add or turn it over to you. He had additional updated language that unfortunately did not make the agenda in time, but I wanted to have him have the opportunity to share that language.
So I brought the questions brought last time on the language from to the Chief of Staff for the State Auditor, John Cormley. He's not even here, but he is a City High graduate, so the leader of City High. He was here a minute ago. But the new language would be the district seeks the assistance of the state auditor to perform additional procedures regarding the district financial statements. Pursuant to Iowa Code 11.642, the board requests the state auditor conduct a re-audit of the district's financial activity upon the conclusion of the FY24 and FY25 financial statement audits by, I can't say it, what's the name of the, Bonsack and Frommelt LLP. The district shall consult with the state auditor as to any necessary further action. In the event that the auditor determines additional procedures are necessary, the cost of such procedures shall be paid by the district. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mitch, for proposing this. Can you just let me know, as I understand it, or as I read the language, it seems to me like that we're going to be requesting the state auditor to do an audit of the district's financial statements, and the private firm also to do an audit. So are we thinking about doing two audits?
And what it would be is that we would hand over the audit to the state auditor. They would look at it and decide if there needs a second audit.
So they wouldn't be doing an audit, they'd be doing a review.
They would take a look at it and then decide, okay, things are looking not great. We should re-audit this to double check the work that was done.
Okay, all right,
That kind of thing.
that's good, all right.
So, and
thank
if they say that, oh, it looks fine, these deficiencies can be remedied,
Right,
we don't have to pay anything.
okay, great, thanks.
Any additional questions or concerns based on that language? All right. Thank you, Director Lingo.
Welcome.
Next up, we will start with the presentation of the recommended budget reductions.
Kim, will you help me pull this up on here? Is it up?
I'm just gonna shrink this down so if you want to pull it up.
All right, good evening again, everybody. This is our third time coming back with some of these proposed reductions. We spent some time last week in our special meeting presenting these to you again and taking your feedback, and tried to be responsive to that as well. And so when we look at the 26-27 proposed budget actions here you have in front of you tonight, we really organized them into a document rather than the presentation form that we delivered in last week. We did talk about some of the guiding principles that drove these recommendations to you here. And the first one about the goal of maintaining that strong student experience while ensuring the long-term financial stability of the district, that we've tried to intentionally focus away from the classroom whenever possible, prioritizing the protection of direct instruction and our core learning experiences. We tried to prioritize, or we're proposing staffing reductions through attrition, including voluntary resignations, retirements, and performance-based non-renewals, that we are not using reductions in force for our teaching staff, but also noting that there will be some involuntary transfers. Some reductions in teaching positions achieved through attrition reflect declining and shifting enrollment patterns. So when we did present some of those classroom based solutions to you last time with the different RAM models, that would have been how we've approached staffing this year. That was a good question we had last time, just based on those declining student levels. You see the summary there of the cost savings in those different measures. There was a couple items that were removed from the document that we had discussed last week, and you'd given us direction to remove those. It is listed at 7.5 million. We had initially thrown out a target of 6, but as we know, this is an ongoing financial challenge for us. It would seem to make sense to incur those savings as we can, as fast as we can. So really section by section, I really wanted to just take a minute to highlight the administration category here. I wanted to acknowledge that we'll begin to realign the team and adjust our organizational structure after approval of these reductions. I know there's questions about where those FTE will be or who, and of course we want to work through that sensitively with our employees. And then in addition to the executive team freeze, I also wanted to propose that we would do a review and or restructure of our central office admin compensation and benefits package as part of this. Of course, we don't negotiate in public with any employee group, so we'd like to follow up with an exempt session with the board on March 24th to make sure our thinking's aligned with yours and begin this process right away. The goal would be to come back April 28th or May 12th, targeting one of those two meeting dates, with, again, a proposed organizational structure that would take us into next year, and then also that newly developed compensation and benefits package. When we look then next for the document, you see the district office savings, again, trying to keep those cuts away from the classroom wherever possible. So here we're really talking about significant reassignment of district office staff to school-based positions. And again, we have that projected at 12 to 16 FTE. Some of that's going to be dependent upon certification of folks at the district office to what positions are created as openings through those attrition models. We did note some mid-year attrition there where we've been not replacing positions since we instituted that hiring freeze there in mid to late February. Operations, again, I'm not going to give you a bunch of details on these in a sense to not be repetitive, but you see staffing reductions and then those summer temporary roles. District personnel savings, talking about support staff adjustments. You might remember from last time talking about the balance of those hourly allocations, that for a larger building that might be a more significant reduction of hours than it would be for some of our smaller attendance centers. Building substitute positions, and then stipend adjustments, and then just a special note that those aren't for student experiences. Those would be things listed there such as the HRS lead, curriculum advocates, core content specialists, but not clubs that would affect our students. Non-personnel adjustments, there's been some conversation about different items on this list as well. Delaying the curriculum purchase, that's one we're familiar with. Oftentimes when we go through a reduction conversation, remember that's a 1 year savings or a one-time savings, that likely that problem is still in front of us when we would be talking about this next spring. Software expenses, we don't have a significant level of detail here because we feel like that's a element we need to work on with our staff about what softwares we would move away from. But from the review of that list, we're confident there's at least $300,000 that could be gathered in savings there in some different categories, but we would want some staff feedback and work with our teaching staff on what would make the most sense there from a utilization standpoint. We could, of course, report back on that throughout the spring if that was of interest to the board as well. Consulting contracts, there's an attachment also on this agenda item that shows the reduction of consulting contracts. elimination of those that are underutilized or not directly impacting student learning. The Chromebook resale is one we discussed last week as well. We had some figures on there about the $285 per device, and that it would look at about a 30 to 40% resale. We know that removing those devices abruptly would leave our teachers in a lurch without some other materials to supplement their instruction. And so really the takeaway from that conversation, if I'm stating it correctly, is to, again, continue to work to get feedback from staff and to develop some potential solutions for considerations there, knowing that we've all been part of those screen time conversations as well. So this one could have a dual goal or purpose for us. And then transportation, we removed the attendance support busing. And so here it's really talking about reducing transportation costs for student events at the CFI. We will still try to look for some sponsors for those opportunities, but things that would not include pressure to our general fund in that. And then probationary teachers, really the note here is, again, non-renewal performance-based, and so those would have been actions that would have occurred throughout the spring anyways. And then you see the breakdown of elementary, middle, and high school that we spent some time talking through last week. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sit back down, and then myself or the team's happy to take any of your questions, but later in action, we're asking for your support of these items tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I would open it up for directors to have questions.
Just for the board, I have one question or one recommendation about the consulting contracts as a result of a email message received today. But I also want to ask the superintendent another question that was in an email. That is, for people who are reassigned as a result of these decisions, what will be their salary and benefits in the position they're reassigned to?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first approach we'd like to take on those reassignments is to keep them in the same contract group if at all possible, so that we don't negatively impact their salary. If they were going to shift contract groups or have a substantial change in the responsibilities, then salary could be impacted. And so, again, that's why that FTE target is somewhat loose on the 12 to 16 to know, can we find an appropriate position for people so we don't negatively impact their income in that way.
Okay, thank you very much. And then, if I might continue, President Malone, for the consulting contracts, the first line is a consulting contract from Deborah Brokow, or that's related to counselors, professional development work that she does with the counselors in the district. And one of the email messages we got really supported that work continuing. So I wonder if I could make a motion to amend that recommendation later on, or if you want to ask for a decision now.
It would be later on, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
So I just want Superintendent Degner to clarify your response to Director Easton's question. For example, if and I'm not saying this is happening, but a hypothetical, if a cabinet level administrator gets moved and to become a elementary school third grade teacher, their salary would be on scale with the third grade teaching salary. They're not going to pull their administrative salary over with them to the teaching position. Okay. Just some comments. I'm going to vote yes for this package tonight, not because I want to, but because we have to. And I want to make clear that I've said this before, I see this as really the first stage of our budget reduction strategy. This is not the end of the money that we need to cut and trim from the budget. As I see it in my head, I'd like to see this work proceed in 3 stages. These immediate cuts are stage 1. Stage 2, what I would like to see is after Superintendent Degner implements the administration and district office savings, I would like to kind of see where the chips fall and what our office district administrative team looks like at the CFI. I think we need to, it's hard to look at the org chart now knowing that 12 to 16 people on that chart may not work here anymore. So once that dust settles, I think we need to take a tough look at the org chart and that we need to see where there are potentially additional savings in positions. That may involve bringing in an outside consultant to talk to us about the most efficient way that we can run our administrative cabinet, and that we should do that work. What I would like to see is that work take place between now and August, so that we take the summer, so we have time to make changes thoughtfully, but also with some sort of immediacy. And then I think the third phase to me of our budget reduction is to take a very hard look at the operational efficiencies of our schools, primarily our elementary schools. This class size problem is real. It is not going away. And it is the #1 issue that our elementary teachers face. And I will tell the members of the community who have come and talked to us about the sizes of their children's classroom, I hear you. My daughter has 32 students in her 5th grade classroom at Penn Elementary. It is not tenable to continue with this size of classes, students in classes in our schools. We do not have the money, though, to add more teaching staff. That is not a solution that we can pursue in this district. And so the only way to right size these classroom sizes is to take a hard look at our schools and make them as efficient as possible. That may involve pairing schools. That may involve closing schools. These are awful decisions to make, but they are absolutely necessary decisions. I would invite anybody from the public, we don't have the slide deck up here, but that RAM data that we got last year with the class sizes, you can go through and find efficiencies, operational efficiencies by simply pairing schools. I did. I just ran the numbers of hypothetically pairing Kirkwood and Coralville, Twain and Lucas, and Mann and Shimmick. And if we did that, we would stay in RAM and save 14 FTE. That's without closing a single school. We would have 14 more elementary school positions to push out into our district, into our schools, and reduce class sizes. And some of that work positively impacts our school. I'll tell everybody, at Horace Mann, according to that data, there is a 5th grade section with 33 5th graders in it. If that 5th grade section were to combine with the 2 sections at Shimmick, that teacher would have 23 students in her classroom instead of 33. She would see a reduction of class sizes of 10. And that teacher would probably be the first to tell you that that would be a wildly meaningful reduction in the quality of education that those 5th graders are getting at Mann Elementary in that classroom. This board has got to get serious about these elementary schools and our lack of students and too many seats. And we have to solve that problem. And that is, to me, the phase 3. It is hard work. If everyone thought that tonight's community comment was tough, let me tell you what community comment's going to look like when we start talking about closing elementary schools. It's awful. It's not fun. And 6 of us sat through it with Hills, so we all know that. But that is the only way that I believe that we can fix the issue of class sizes in this district. And we owe it to these kids, we owe it to our families to make tough decisions and set us up for success. So I'm a yes, reluctantly, and I want to be clear, I don't think this is the end of the road for us. We have a significant amount of work to do at the administrative level, but also at an operational level. And I would hope that the rest of the board agrees.
Thank you so much for that honest assessment. I made those same calculations. I thought, does that 5th grade class from Mann want to go to Shimmick? You can have a class of 23 students. I mean, 10 less, what a big difference that would make. I know. I also know that the solutions are going to be difficult, but necessary. Director Williams, I also agree with your thought of bringing in a external consultant. This crises like this often expose weaknesses that have been previously ignored. This is an opportunity for us to restructure and right-size, and opportunity to build on our culture. Superintendent Degner, I commend you on the step to open up an exempt session on the 24th to take a look at these administrator contracts. And I want to emphasize this is less about dollar amount and really more about sending a message to our community that we hear you. This is a symbolic step demonstrating shared sacrifice, and it builds trust and credibility, helps protect morale, signals responsible stewardship, ethical leadership, and there may be a small practical financial impact as well. I would prefer to wait until after that exempt session and to see the proposal to vote on tonight's budget reductions. So I'm asking to table the budget reductions until the March 24th meeting, or whenever it is that we will have these adjustments in place. Because for me, I need to see those adjustments in place before I can say yes to this. And I don't believe that there is a rush to approve this tonight. I believe that we could wait another couple weeks. So if the other directors do not wish to table this to another meeting, I'll just have to be a no. But it would be my wish to better understand what we are doing with that exempt session before voting on these reductions tonight.
Molly had a comment.
Thanks, Director Lingo. One thing about the probationary teachers that are the non-renewal of performance-based probationary teachers, I just want to be sure that we aren't filling some of those with people that don't fit that position. This came up when we talked about the TAPE principal, that we didn't want to just put somebody in there. We needed to really find the right fit. And I think there are probably some non-renewal performance-based probationary teacher spots that we need to be really careful about, and we may even need to advertise if it's some, more specialized elementary area or whatever it is. So I just want to be sure that we're cautious in how we do that. The other thing, and I think you all know I'm a long time special ed advocate. Much of my career was spent, supporting students with IEPs. But I think we need to take a harder look at special ed, at the lead teachers and the coordinators, that the deficit that just keeps going and going, even though we aren't adding that many more students. I just think we need to take a harder look at that, and maybe the director of special services, can talk to us about what she sees as possible ways to reduce some of that spending. I know it's not this, the different pot of money. I understand all those pieces, but I still think it impacts our total budget, and I think we need to take a hard look at that as well.
I have a couple of questions stemming from some of these comments just now, and I think that I guess moving from Director Abrams' comment about the structure of the special education team, and then kind of relating that to what you were saying, Director Finch, about wanting to see the impact of potential changes. I think all of that kind of works together, perhaps, and could be
an important factor in decision-making here. I also want to make sure I understand the implications of delaying a vote rather than having a vote tonight. I share a couple of things with those who have spoken already. One is appreciation for listening to the community input we've received over the last few weeks and coming back with revised proposals, and that kind of responsiveness I've appreciated. I also share a similar viewpoint with Director Williams about the importance of using this as an opportunity to think deeply about structural changes that we want to make going forward to shore up and our district and to sustain us into the future. A couple of things that had been on my mind before I started contemplating the possibility of delaying a vote were related to the fact that every single one of the decisions in this proposal is difficult, and they all affect, and they're difficult because they affect people. And so my what I would like to see us do very intentionally throughout this process is, no matter what we decide to cut, to make sure that we are monitoring it, to look at the impact that has, because every single one of these proposed cuts has impact that we anticipate right now and will have impact that we do not anticipate. You know, having one less building sub available, what does that do to a building? Having fewer elementary library support staff hours, what does that do to our kids' reading and our librarians' ability to do their work? And we've heard a lot about RAM and that impact that is so important. So throughout this, no matter when we vote, whether it's tonight or some other time, and no matter what the cuts are, I want to make sure that we set up, I guess in a sense, systems for monitoring the impact on where we are making cuts and looking at places we haven't touched to see if perhaps those are places we could additionally have efficiencies. So I guess my outstanding question really right now is, what is the realistic impact of potentially delaying a vote?
Superintendent Degner.
Sure. So a couple impact points when we talk about the reassignment of district office staff into those open building positions. I think first and foremost, right, we want to be fair to our people and let them know what that potential reassignment is going to look like. And if that's not something they would prefer to do, then that they have still some options as we're in, peak hiring season. And we also need time to understand if they're not going to be able to fill the role, or if we don't have somebody on our team that can fill that role, can we get postings up then to acquire some outside talent? To Director Abraham's point that she's making, not everybody may fit one of those positions that our building needs, but we would prefer to start on that analysis as soon as possible for those couple reasons, and to be able to give people options if they are going to be reassigned, so that they understand that. I think our goal in having a vote here is to be able to move that timeline along, and similar to even the administrative team reductions, if we know that's the number we're looking at, then again, that allows us to start to work with team members on that approach, or to understand if whatever that would look like for a change of their role, that they'd understand the implications of that. It also helps us from a bargaining perspective, just as we approach bargaining with our groups. If we understand the size of the cut that we've made and what we're committed to, it allows us to start that approach with our different negotiated groups. The one that we had mentioned tonight, of course, was I know people aren't super familiar with the term, but the meet and confer process we use with our admin team. If we did the first meeting with you in an exempt session, that would really be to, like we do in other situations, set parameters for negotiating, and then we would engage with the group from there to have that back and forth. And so that doesn't happen real fast, right, as you guys know, through that negotiating process. So we would need a window of time to complete that. And I would just remind the board, you have other big work that's still going to be in front of you here over the next couple, 3 weeks as well. And so, again, we want to respect your input and your timeline, and we'll do what you ask us to do, but those would just be a few of the things that we'd ask you to consider.
Just one question. With next week being spring break, How does that factor into what you just explained to us? Are people working throughout spring break on this?
Yeah, our office is still
Okay.
open Monday
Okay.
through Wednesday. I mean, we would start some of these conversations as
Okay.
soon as tomorrow.
Okay.
If we knew that we were gonna move forward with impacted staff, yeah.
So then a question, if the vote happened tonight and after we met on the 24th and had a discussion on how we want to handle those contracts and we get to that point of meet and confer, if there's additional savings there, can we come back to some of these cuts?
Yeah, I think then it's, President Malone, it's somewhat thinking through, I think the point Director Finch was making, right, about, the symbolic nature from the standpoint of leadership, versus the actual dollar amount that's acquired there. I don't think that we're gonna do anything through those contracts that's gonna substantially impact our ability to remove another, large item from this list. It'll make some positive impact, but it's probably not going to substantially change a recommendation. I think it's more for those other factors. We'd want to look at that.
And for just, again, because I had some teachers reach out regarding a probationary teacher non-renewal for performance-based. These are teachers that have been monitored, had meetings, discussions throughout the year regarding their performance
Correct.
throughout this year.
Probationary teachers would be teachers year 1 through 3, potentially.
Okay.
So it could have been, if that conversation hadn't happened maybe for their first year in the district, but for some reason they had a performance-based concern this year, that could have started in year 2, for example.
Okay.
If anybody, first, the first thing I want to comment on is if we are discussing about going down the route of school changes, I think it'd be worthwhile to look at a 1-year reprieve of parents that are in large class sizes to look around at any schools that are small around them. I know like Man has class 33. Over at Shimmick, it's an incredibly small grade level. It would make sense that those parents, I have the RAM in front of me right now. When I look over at, what was it? Lucas has two classes of 20 and a class of 21.5 and two classes of 16.5 at grades 3 through 5. I look over at Twain, they have a class of 28. I look in 5th grade and look at Lemmy, they have two classes of 29. Look at Lemmy again, 3rd grade, class 28.5. It would make sense to me to give those parents the option in a year like what we were probably facing. Next up, I agree with Director Abrams' thoughts on looking into the special education deficit, which is $8.8 million, somewhere between $8 and $9 million. We know we don't have the cash for that next year. We may also need to look into the $5 million ELL deficit, which is in a similar situation to help us find where we can bring up cash and lower those. Like, I understand that they are providing needed services, but I also understand the points of Molly. And let me think what else I was gonna say. And I just want to point out that we still need to cover to the audience at home, that we still need to cover the $10.4 million interfund loan and part of July payroll. And this question for Superintendent Degner, given these cuts, will this get us to a place where we have the appropriate amount of wiggle room for next year, or do you think that we will come back and still have to look for more cuts?
Yeah, so that's something we want to spend time with you guys on the 24th, right? Because when we look at those different financial health markers for us, part of the cuts help us on the spending authority then that we know is critical for Iowa school districts when we look at financial health. And then we've also talked about this larger cash concern. And so, yes, fewer dollars going out the door in cash, right, is going to start to address that concern. We will give some of this back in negotiations, right? Some of those cuts that we do make, we still do negotiate and we will reach some settlement with our different groups. And so having a good understanding of the variables that impact both is some of that follow-up that we want to do with you next week to understand, okay, with this targeted number of reductions, then what is our cash considerations that we still need to think about? What increased revenues are we potentially looking at? You mentioned a couple outstanding things we need to address. And then also, how does this impact us positively on the spending authority side? So to answer your question simplistically about does it give us enough wiggle room, it gives us a needed start to that wiggle room, but we are still going to need, as we've talked about, a substantial loan to deal with the cash problem, right? But if we don't do these cuts, then that number would increase, of course, for that.
Given the CFO's comments on the lack of financials and financial data, do you feel confident that we are in a place that we can do negotiations?
I think we have to do negotiations. And so I think as far as what we're seeing in terms of the progress we're making on those financials and the ability to work with her on developing effective costing models, yes, I feel like we'll be in a good place for those. Sorry, I was going to go back to another comment you made, but I don't want to transition you too fast, but you had a good idea that I wanted to go back to at some point when you're finished.
Go ahead.
I just wondered you're kind of talking about transfer policies for families. If that's something of interest, I didn't want to lose the thought that if that is something the board wants us to bring back, if there's any appetite for some kind of a short, small transfer window for families that could potentially move, I don't want to put too many parameters on it here at the board table, but there's ways we could develop some frameworks for you to look at if that's something you guys do want to consider. So I just didn't want to lose that part. And then the second point you made, Director Lingo, was about, and that Director Abraham was talking about with the special ed structure, kind of if we follow Director Williams' thinking into kind of the phase 2 would be a piece I would see of that conversation about the overall org chart and then what are the org charts within the larger org chart. So I think we could couple those together nicely in that phase 2 of that approach for sure. Sorry, now I probably threw
I just
you
want
off.
to voice my support.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in looking at a transfer policy.
Okay.
And the last thing that I would say is that I'm on board with Director Finch wanting to pause it and get a better look at this 2 weeks from now when we have better data. Because to me, some people could call those cuts or whatever it is symbolic. For me, it's money. I mean, every dollar matters and every dollar counts. And at the end of the day, it's just always going to be $1 that puts your UAB over the negative budget. That's not saying that I'm worried about that, but it's always having that in our pocket to make sure that we are providing the best product in our classrooms.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your concern on that. I just would want to be transparent. You're not going to know more in 2 weeks, right? In 2 weeks, what we would do is start the process with you to understand what parameters you'd want to look at in those, and so you're likely then delaying this well into April before you would have any decision point if that's the road you want to travel.
I guess what I would have liked to have seen happen, because I brought it up in the last meeting and the meeting before that, was to have a proposal for voluntary concessions here for us tonight. So I just think it's important for the community to see this happening in tandem rather than the budget cuts, and then later on we'll talk about that. I'm going to be a no tonight because I really need to see what these some information on what these adjustments are going to be before I vote on to these budget reductions.
And I want to say, Director Finch, I agree with that to some extent, but I don't feel like this is the end of the road with what we're doing with the administration team. And so I guess I don't want it to seem like I'm like, well, we're just voting tonight and now we're done. We don't have to do anything else. I want to be clear that I expect and anticipate that we are going to continue the work moving forward. So even though I'm voting yes, that I do not see this as the end of the road for us.
I fully understand that, and I also understand you don't need my vote to pass this tonight. So my vote is it is what it is.
Any additional comments? Hearing none, that will take us into our action items for tonight. The first action item is the 600 policies for the education program. Is there any other additional comments or questions? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the 600 policies, education programs as presented in the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Board Secretary Covum, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with Directors Eastham, Horn Fraser, Lingo, Malone, and Williams voting yea, and Directors Abraham and Finch voting nay.
Thank you. Next up is our recommended budget reductions. Is there or are there additional comments or questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to table.
Second.
Till the next meeting,
Yeah.
sorry.
I'm sorry, second.
All right. Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Yep, can you give me just 1 second here? Online voting is open.
Kim, this came up as the recommended budget reductions on the vote, but it's the motion to table that we're voting on, correct?
Okay, wait a minute.
Thank you.
Thank you for the correction.
I have in there motion to table. And this is for the budget reductions.
What's that?
Correct. Motion to table the budget reductions.
I need some help here, Kim. I thought we were voting on a motion to table the reductions.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to
That
figure
is
out right
it.
now, Molly.
And what popped up?
Okay.
I closed mine because it's.
It just says recommended budget reductions, and then the supporting documents are attached to it. So it looks to me like we're voting on the budget reductions, not the motion to table.
I guess I don't know the workaround around that because when I put the import in for it, it says motion to table
Okay, then
budget reductions to next meeting.
Okay. So this one actually is the motion to table.
This is the motion to table, yep, the budget reductions to
thank
the
you.
next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Can you resend it?
I can resend it, let's see what happens. It might be easier just to do a roll call vote.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to table the recommended budget reductions to the next meeting. And I'm going to do a roll call to see how everybody wants to vote. Abraham?
No.
Eastham?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Horn Fraser?
No.
Lingo?
Yes.
Williams?
no.
Malone?
Yes.
Motion carries with Directors Eastham, Finch, Lingo, and Malone voting yea, and Directors Abraham, Horn Fraser, and Williams voting nay.
And President Malone, as a point of clarification, are we, did that motion also table the consulting contracts?
That tabled everything
Okay,
until the 24th.
okay, great, thank you.
Next up is the audit resolution. Beth, we had new language introduced tonight, and we could take a vote on it, but since it's not on there, best practice would recommend that we wait and table that. So if there's a motion,
Motion to table until next meeting.
Second.
ready to vote.
Let me see if I can get that. We may end up in the same situation here, but let's see. And I'm sorry, can you tell me again who was the motion and who was the second? Mitch was the motion?
Motion to table
Okay.
on the audit resolution until next meeting.
And the second was?
Second.
Nope, that's all right. Online voting is open. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to table the audit resolution until the next meeting.
So we do not vote with the pop-up because that's not what it says?
You can, with the
Yeah.
clarification that that is what it is. It's,
She's saying that the pop-up is incorrect, but that's what you're voting. we're voting on.
We can do verbal.
roll call.
Yep. So the motion on the floor is to table the audit resolution until the next board meeting. Abraham. Aye. Eastham.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
Horn Fraser.
Aye.
Lingo. Malone.
Yes.
Williams.
Aye.
Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
That concludes the action items. Next up is the legislative update. We have 2 additional forums left for this session, and I would open it up for directors that were able to attend the special legislative forum last Friday, and/or Superintendent Degner, if you had comments.
One thing Director Lingo had mentioned before about that closeout thing we were talking about, I can work to clear that up with legislators. I think we had a misunderstanding from what Kim was referring to as well, and so if that got incorrectly communicated, I'm happy to clear that up. I will say the SSA bill was signed. There's an important part in there that'll be relevant to our conversation next week about the receipt of quarterly state aid payments rather than monthly state aid payments. And so as we look at trying to put together our cash flow picture for next year, the receipt of those funds in July will be significant for us rather than waiting till the monthly disbursements of those. And we've been working to get confirmation on that reading of the bill today. And I believe I received that tonight while we were sitting here, so that'll be a positive thing for us. We did share with the legislators some of our concerns about the Make America Healthy Again bill as far as the unfunded mandate portion of the bill with PE and screens. Of course, you know, we don't have any issues with PE, we don't have any issues with screens, but in terms of requiring more of that to be taught in our schools without any additional funding coming to support that makes it a difficult proposition. There's a couple concerning ones about cameras in special education classrooms, and then some of the redirect on the social studies standards that were had a high level of input from teaching staff throughout the state, and the DE led that work, and it seems that those are being reconsidered at the state level pretty significantly. And I'll be and I haven't seen an update on those the last 2 days, so I apologize. And then flexibility on the ESSA funds. We receive a small portion of the like $1,200 for each of our students that are on ESAs, and there's a bill moving through the legislature that would allow us to use those in general fund purposes rather than to sit in the categoricals, so that would have a significant positive impact for us. So some advocacy on that end to our legislators would be helpful to remind them that we would be supportive of that flexibility. So those would be a few of the updates I had.
Anything else from directors? Next up is Director Liaison Report. I don't know if there's any items that directors would like to highlight.
I would. I had the opportunity last Friday to join as a participant in the restorative practices training, and I appreciate Director Cottrell letting me know about that and making an effort to find a way for me to join. I was in a room with something in the neighborhood of 36th through 12th graders who are leaders who are interested in learning skills and then working with their peers in restorative practices. And it was truly inspiring, and I learned alongside them, I learned from them. And because we are in the middle of a very difficult situation, I thought that it was well-timed for me to have the learning that I had. And I want to share just a little bit with you if you're not familiar with what this is all about. And I'm reading from the really great resource book that was provided to everybody who took the training. And this is just a bullet list of the key values of a restorative mindset. Relationships and trust are central. We've heard that tonight, through the last few weeks, and that's work ahead of us. Everyone shares responsibility for the community, and I think that we're demonstrating that we're all here because we're sharing in this responsibility. Every voice matters and is respected, and we are certainly trying to live that. Healing is part of restoring connection. It's all about community and building connection. Accountability includes taking an active role in repair. And I think we are all working toward that as well. And finally, conflict is addressed through dialogue, problem solving, and collaboration. And I think all of these things are things that we individually would say, of course, that's a value I share. Seeing it all put together in this way is really powerful, and seeing it in action with our students was truly wonderful. And I just wanted to share that with everybody here. Thank you.
Thank you. President Malone? Last night I attended the Black Voices Project's monthly meeting along with Director Horn-Frazier and Director Lynch, as well as Superintendent Degner and other members of the Black Voices. And listening to Jennifer's reading from those skill sets and principal values for working on deeply held conflicts, or not, if not conflicts, and being uncertain about how to proceed, reminded me of that meeting. We had I think a very full discussion of the district's financial issues, as in the context of a full discussion of all of the students in the district, and who Black Voices members really want to highlight, to center, and to understand their perspectives and wishes.
Thank you. Anything else directors want to highlight?
Since he's here tonight, I just wanted to thank Principal Gross over there for being my child's human jungle gym at the Ramadan dinner a couple weeks ago. He helped us marginally, pretty well, be able to eat dinner that night, and he is now known as New Mitch around the house. So, thank you.
Great. Then we will move on to agenda setting for the 24th. We will have policy and governance that will start at 5:30, and it will focus on the 700 policies, which is non-instructional operations and business services, as well as policy 302.4. And then we will have a special board meeting, public hearing on the proposed property tax levy that will be at 6 o'clock immediately before our regular meeting. And that takes us to our regular meeting, which we'll have our education showcase, as well as discussion items, 700 policies, the interim financial chief report. We will bring back the updated board timeline. The budget cuts will be voted on that night, and action item for the conveyance of real property. Any additional items?
Yes, sorry, so I have several. So back to an issue I talked about at the beginning of the meeting, we'd like to have an agenda item on our capital accounts and review of those. We'd like to have an introductory discussion on the borrowing need. I'm not sure if this is the right title, but we'll work on the title. We would ask the board to approve our SBRC exhibits that will be appearing in front of the SBRC in April, and so we'll have some exhibits for your consideration. I have listed certified budget and the budget guarantee resolution. So we'll work on both of those. And then the only other question I guess I'm, wanting some further direction on is if we're going to do the exempt, then would we do that at 5? And do you still want to have the cuts listed on the agenda, or do we need some better space there? So if we do a PG at 5:30, maybe we could consider exempt at 5, and then just your direction. It sounds like from President Malone, what you said, you would still plan to have those on the agenda for consideration.
Yeah. Okay. But can we would it be possible to do the exempt earlier? Could directors get here at 4:30? Or nope?
I
I actually have to go to the Johnson County Conference Board.
Okay,
Meeting
that's
for
fine.
the school board,
Yeah.
and that's at 4, and it's at the, it's at the county building.
Okay.
Anyway, 4:30, I can't do, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we could do 5.
But will you be able to make it to the 5, Director Williams?
Yeah,
Okay,
it should
I
be
was
over
just-
at 4:30, and then that gives me a half an hour to get from
Okay.
the south side to here. So that 5 is fine.
Because the P and G
Yeah.
and you're in
Yeah.
that, I didn't
Yeah.
know if you wanted to flip that.
Oh.
Yeah.
5 is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one.
Go ahead.
The one thing that I would ask when we do the budget guarantee, if Kurt could have sorry to throw it on you, Kurt, but a few slides. I know I asked for it a few weeks ago,
we'll have those.
but on
Yep.
what that means and what it means for taxes and how it all works.
Exactly, yep.
Please and thank you.
We had a constituent reach out about recognizing April as National Arab American Heritage Month with a resolution. So if the directors are in agreement with that, I'd like to see that on the agenda. And then I've had several educators reach out wondering how it would be possible to have anonymous feedback channels. So I don't know, probably not next meeting, but put that in the parking lot to look at ways for our educators and staff to provide anonymous feedback.
Then I have one other thing that's not the 24th.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Likely following the meeting on the 24th, then we would need to have Allers and PFM bond counsel here the following week. They're not available on the 31st, and so they've asked if we could meet on the 1st or 2nd of April. That would be a Wednesday or Thursday evening. So if the board has a preference, I'd like to follow up with them right away tomorrow to know which of those dates.
Director Williams?
You said April 1st or 2nd?
Correct.
I don't have a preference. Sorry.
I prefer the first.
The 1st?
If I was given a choice.
Do 5 o'clock on the 1st?
Yes.
I'd just like to comment on Director Finch's interest in having a resolution recognizing, what is it? Arabic?
National Arab American Heritage
National
Month.
Arabic, okay. Yeah, I really appreciate your bringing that up, and I think that's a good thing for us to pursue.
Anything else? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.